Today, I encountered a Karen. Listen, my husband took me out of town for my birthday, and I'll show the vlog at the end of this video. So anyway, so we're at this beachfront hotel and having a great time. And so we come back from dinner. And so when we come back from dinner, I noticed that my neck pillow was missing. So I called the front desk and I said, oh, I think maybe the housekeeper may have accidentally wrap my pillow in maybe the blankets or the sheets or something like that. Well, actually, since I'm in menopause, I actually forgot that I put the pillow away. Okay, so it was my fault. So I go out into the lobby and I tell the receptionist at the desk, I said, oh, I just wanted to let you know that I actually found my neck pillow. I thank you, so much for being so gracious to try to find my pillow, but it was my fault. No fault of the housekeeper at all. And so as I'm talking, out of my peripheral vision, I can see a tall standing there. Now, if you are part of the beautiful diaspora of beautiful Black folks, I'm sure that you have encountered this person many, many times, okay? So anyway, so she's standing there. She's not saying anything. So I turn. Now, this woman is probably 6 feet tall. So, and remember, whenever you encounter somebody, you're supposed to always look look them in the eye. So me looking, I'm 5'1.5". Okay, so I was looking at her, probably her shoulder, okay, or a little bit below. Okay, so it kind of looked like this. But listen, I looked her in the eye. It was like this, but that's okay. All right. But anyway, so I'm looking at her. And so she says to me, where are you from? That was it. And I said, hello. I said, how are you doing? And she said, I'm fine. She said, but where are you from? And so I tell her where I'm from. One thing that you have to learn when you are dealing with a Karen is whatever question they ask you, you ask the same question in return. You better ask them so many questions, they'll think they on Jeopardy. Apparently, this Karen thought that she was writing my autobiography. Okay, so she continues to ask me where I'm from or where she's from. Then she says, well, where do you work? And, of course, I share with her where I work. And of course, naturally, I ask her the same question. Well, she begins to get frustrated. She says to me, you've already asked me that question. So she gets upset. Her voice was loud, right? So she started getting loud. Her voice was already quite loud, but she began to get angry because I was asking her questions, right? And because she felt like I wasn't listening to her, which was true. I wasn't listening to her because, lady, I don't even know you, right? You are a complete stranger that just decided to walk up to me and ask me where I'm from. Now, let me start asking you what's your ATM PIN, then you'll be upset. Okay, if I ask you your credit card, okay, if I ask you whether or not you've been on drugs or alcohol, then you'll be offended. Okay, but you come to me and ask me questions about where do I work and all these unnecessary questions, right? And so I'm just standing up there looking at her, right? Just looking at her, right? Looking at her. Okay, because she's tall. So anyway, so I said to her, is there a reason why you are being so nasty and so aggressive? And she says, I'm not being nasty. I'm not being aggressive. Listen, I said, you are making me feel extremely uncomfortable. And I'm beginning to feel unsafe. I said, because you are being very loud and very aggressive. I'm not being aggressive. I'm not being nasty. And so the louder she gets, the softer that my voice is. Now, my voice is already very low when I'm talking to her, because if you think that I am going to give you what you want, okay, which is for me to get loud and belligerent, that will never happen. So anyway, so she says, I'm not being nasty. I'm not being aggressive. And I said, yes, you are. I said, you are making me feel extremely uncomfortable. I said, I don't feel comfortable associating with people that has a very nasty and aggressive attitude. I don't have an attitude. I'm not being aggressive. I said, yes, you are. I said, your voice is getting very loud. I said, we are in a public hotel and you're being very obnoxious. So one thing I forgot to mention that they were having sort of like a little reception, like a little wine and cheese and crackers and fresh fruit and, all these little snacks. And it was all on the table. And so I told her, I said, I suggest that you get your plate, right? And enjoy your stay. I said, because you're making me feel extremely uncomfortable, right? And she turns and she gets her plate. And you know what she did? She starts stumping down the hallway and she starts saying, I'm not nasty. I'm not aggressive. I'm not aggressive. I'm sorry. But she's stomping down the hallway and everyone is sort of looking at her. And so I'm looking at her sort of walk down this hallway and, and I'm thinking, wow, I said, you know what? Our ancestors would be so proud, okay? Because I didn't give Karen what she wanted. And this is a lesson for you too. Listen, when you encountering Karen, and there's no reason to go on their level, because remember what our forever First Lady says, okay? When they go low, you go high. Don't allow them to get you out of character. So the louder she became, the softer my voice became. Because I'm thinking, okay, this is because we know that look. We have encountered this many, many times, right? She picked the right one on that day. But anyway, listen, don't let them get you out of character. You keep being you, and you look them dead in their eyes and never avert your eyes down, and you say your piece and you say what you have to say, right? And of course it's frustrating, right? It's exhausting for people to have to go through that so often and so frequently, right? But that's okay. God made us the way that we are. We are built for a season such as this, right? So he knows what to do in terms of those circumstances. And sometimes we even have to say, you know what? God, word my mouth, right? God, word my mouth. I'm representing you, right? But, I'm not going to stand for being disrespected. And you do not have to stand for being disrespected. It's okay to ask questions, and you ask them the same questions that they ask you. Whatever they give, they're getting. Okay, whatever they give, they're getting. So you ask me a question, I'm going to ask you a question, right? You ask the same question, right? Back and forth. Listen, I had the time, okay? I had the time. So afterwards, after I seen her marching off, I got me and my husband a little snack to take to the room, and we enjoyed our stay, okay? So I hope that gives you food for thought. So look forward to the video where I'm going to talk about how to handle a Karen, okay? So I hope that this encourages you. God bless you. And remember, do not ever give up before the miracle happens. God bless. Bye.